Can you fund for projects further than 30 years into the future? Should you fund for projects that are just inspections? What difference does it make to your ongoing reserve funding requirements if you start out with a strong or weak reserve fund? Should you take the time to get more reserve interest from your reserve fund? And from a long list of components, how do you tell which ones are the most significant? In this section of our Reserves in Real Life webinar, we look at these kinds of issues as we dive into the details and make changes to a reserve study for a 134-unit downtown high-rise. It's a great example property with plenty of complexity, allowing us to flex our reserve study skills to show how these kinds of decisions are made.
Let's now turn to the high-rise. A little more complicated situation, but the same type of basic principles. What are the components? What are your funding tools? What buttons can you press? And how are you going to communicate that to the homeowners and make that plan yours? So here we are, 1981, 134 units, one 33-story building in a major metropolitan area, pool and spa. I know this building, the pool and spa. We're up on the 33rd floor, gorgeous up there, and 3 elevators serving this property. So let's do the same thing again. Let's go to Planet and pick the high rise. And here we are. Much longer component list, sites and grounds, tennis courts outside, building exterior, building interior, exercise equipment, the pool and deck up in the penthouse level, management office, systems, domestic water, generator, exhaust fans, boilers, cooling tower, elevator, trash compactors, lots of stuff. So that's exactly what you get at a high-rise. Mark, what do you want to do?
Yeah, it's a little bit complicated. Just again, we're looking at our component list. It's important to know that, that's where you always got to start. One thing that folks are probably noticing is these grayed outlines. Not everything that the association is responsible for needs to be funded through reserves. So we've got some things that are maybe they're an unpredictable life and we don't know really when it's going to fail. Maybe we have things that are just lower in cost and they can be funded through an operating expense. So that's why you're going to see some of these grayed outlines here. Another thing that I've gotten questions on is, hey, this is a 30-year funding plan. What happens if something is going to fail at 35 and we just not plan for it? The answer is no. We got components here that are in the plan for beyond 30 years, but they're not going to get replaced or repaired in the 30-year course of your study. Remember that the study is going to be updated regularly and we need to fund for those things over time.
Yeah, so here's one, 35 years life, 31 years left. Big expense. I think that's $450,000. And I think you said it earlier, we're not talking about saving for the future. All we're talking about is offsetting this year's deterioration, taking care of the present. And if every year it takes care of the present, you're going to wake up after 31 years and at least 10 more reserve study updates, and you're going to realize we have the cash.
Yeah, I think we're going to be able to see when we go through this example, just kind of different ways we can make sure that the association's taken care of, even when there's things that we didn't see coming when we did this in the first year. So we've got some other phase projects here as well. I think if you scroll down just a little bit. Yeah, so the residential halls, that's a great example of a phased project.
Good eye.
You're going to, fund for a 2, a 3, and a 4, and on down, because, as your hallways need to be updated, there are not elements that are deteriorating and causing maybe more damage like paint or siding. But the hallways, yeah, you can defer those a little bit and do them in phases to, again, make it just a little bit more palatable and convenient for your homeowners. Another one that's on here that's kind of unique to a building of this size is consultants. I think it's down a few rows still.
I saw infrastructure inspection. Consultants is, do you have a number for me?
The 990, I think.
Okay. There's a reserve study.
No, is that all the way down? Maybe it was a different one. So sometimes you'll fund for consultants, sometimes you'll fund for inspection, sometimes you'll fund for different things that maybe aren't outlined in even the specifically stated maintenance responsibilities of the association, but they're still good things to have, and you want to make sure that you're doing what you need to do to take care of the property and making sure that you're funding for those kinds of things. I think Robert's got the infrastructure inspection highlighted. Those can be pretty expensive, and if you're not prepared for it, it can really surprise you.
Yeah, a reserve component doesn't have to be a thing. It can be an inspection. Here's an annual safety inspection for about $20,000, and with this 9-year life cycle, I'm guessing this is a California project. They have special balcony inspections every 9 years. That's $83,000, and it looks like they just got it done. The lesson learned from that is the consultant, the structural inspection report probably said you need to look at these balconies annually, and it's probably going to be about X amount of dollars. And so that's the kind of information we dial into the reserve study. So now the board and the association is ready for those types of projects.
Yeah, I think that's good to know, especially if you're in one of these bigger buildings with, again, same level of experience. Your board is basically volunteers, so it's not like just because you live in a bigger building, you suddenly have more qualified board members. They're just folks who care about their community and are doing a typically thankless job, and they definitely need to be able to do what they need to do with the professional help that they need.
Yeah, volunteer board members make the world go around. I want to look at this significance table and see what jumps out. The repainting is big, caulking the exterior, windows. Oh, gee.
You can imagine on a building this size, you're going to get cranes, you're going to need some scaffolding. It's gonna be pricey.
And the 10% almost for the elevators, yeah. A nice spread of projects, but you can see pretty quickly with this table where your money is going to. Nice.
Well, let's see how their money's doing.
Okay. Let's see. They're starting with about $750,000. Do the same thing for them. They're probably years spent at 0.5% or 1%. And let's double check. Yeah, they had a full funding plan that was 38. I'm writing this down. 840 per. It's got to be per month. Yeah, monthly cycle. So $265 a unit for reserve funding. Gets them fully funded. How good would it be if they were getting 4%? And the answer is really good. Okay.
How's that?
Yeah, instead of 38,000, we're talking 31,000, 32,000. That's worth a trip to the bank.
Sure. What does that baseline look like? Just so we know what the bottom is. Not that we're trying to get there.
Yeah. Okay. So full funding is 31.9. I'll write that down. 31.920. If you just want to stay cash positive, 26,650. So that's their kind of window. You want to be above 26,650 and as close to $31,000 or $32,000 as you can get. And you wonder, what about if we just get up to 60% funded or something? And let's just try $30,000 per month. Actually, that's not a bad solution. And so this is how you and the board can try to decide what can we do, how much can we do it, and you can see they're going to a 3% increase and then settling down to just a 0.5% later on to flatten the curve out. Lots of things you can do.
Yep. And I asked about the baseline because I kind of wanted to show, can we maybe give them a surprise expense? Something that maybe when they went up to paint, they discovered some spalling on the side of the building that they had to repair that.
Oh, yikes. Okay, let's do that. Building exterior. nice big expense. Let's say that instead of this being 4 years away, it's 0. And let's see what that does. See if we can see that. $500,000 expense in the first year. That'll make a difference.
Yeah. Wish I could say it never happened.
Yeah. Okay. They are still okay with this funding plan because it's just moving that expense around. Let's see. Let's do one more thing. Let's add a component. Where was that? That was the repaint 533. Let's add a component. Call it 534. And we'll call it spalling. $30 years, 0, and $250,000. Ouch. Yeah. So there's the spalling repairs. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah, that's going to be a painful initial year. And sometimes the building just hurts. And nothing you can do. And so what do you do? Well, that's going to suck a lot of your money. They were starting with $750,000. They're going to spend $500,000 just in the first year. So instead of that $30,000 being getting up to 60% level, they're getting a lot of their cash sucked out. And could be and last tweak here. Let's suppose instead of $750,000, they had about $500,000. Make it a little tighter on them. Yeah, you can see what sometimes you just don't have much money and things get tight. And things are going to be tight at this association for the next few years.
Yeah. I saw that really just say, hey, you're going to be tempted to go to baseline. You're going to be tempted to hit the baseline solver and set your assessments there. And all you're doing is really opening yourself up to a lot of risk. And Robert mentioned it earlier, it's a different webinar, but the difference between a component method funding and a cash flow method funding, you're going to be in better shape. And over the long term, you're going to be taken care of. But as you get to that 70% funded, your special assessment risk really drops down to about 1% or less. So just be very careful about hitting that baseline solver and saying we're going to live on a hope and a prayer.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's turn the corner now. And let's finish off the high rise.
At Association Reserves, we make the present less stressful and the future more secure. If you want to join us in this mission, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. Leave a comment down below on what you'd like to see us address in a future video. Let's plan for your best future.